General Hair 101 and understanding your hair type. Let's talk about it today on Locks Talk. Welcome and come on in. Welcome to another episode of Locks Talk. We're going to talk General Hair 101 today. But before we get into that conversation, I'd like to ask you a favor to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And check out my website. It's down there. Today's episode is a revised recording as well. And it is based on information that I have posted in my blog on my website. So go check that out if you like to just read into it. But I like to have a one-to-one conversation and talk just with you about it. So let's get into this conversation today. We're going to talk General Hair 101, understanding your hair type, and how to really understand what you're looking for to know what your hair type is. Let's go. So, generally when I have these Locks Talk videos, a lot of the conversations are about having locks, but this is for all hair, whether you are locked or not. This is all hair. Okay, I just wanted to make that quick announcement because I know people, they get a little confused because I call my blog Locks Talk. And I don't just talk about locks. I'm talking about hair in general. Because if you don't have knowledge of your hair in itself, how could you go into committing to something like locks if you don't know nothing about your hair? So Locks Talk is generally just because I'm a loctician, but I also work with natural hair. I do. I have just as many loose natural hair clients as I do lock clients. So just saying, this is an all hair talk. So let's talk about it. So what made me decide to do this particular video on General Hair 101, understanding your hair type? The reason for it is, especially within our community, it's assumed that if your hair is coarse in any kind of way, automatically it's assumed that you have 4C hair. No, that's not how it works. There's several factors that you have to incorporate in order to understand and know what your hair type is. So you can't just go based on what you see. Is what I'm saying. And all people of our community do not have 4C hair. Okay? And stop with the good hair, bad hair. All hair that is healthy is good hair. Period. And point blank. So let's get into this conversation and understanding your hair type. Come on, follow me. So, hair type. Hair type is based on 4 general factors, but I am going to talk about 5. So there will be an honorable mention in addition to what you see here, whether it's on whichever side of me it's on. So your hair type is based on 4 things: texture, density, curl pattern, and hair porosity. Texture, density, curl pattern, and hair porosity. All right? You see that chart that's above it where you got the little lines and stuff. That chart doesn't necessarily tell you your hair type. It might focus in on your curl pattern a little bit, but I don't generally like to use that as a guide to telling you what your hair type is, because we need to know more stuff about your hair for us to determine what your hair type is. So your hair type is not just based on your curl pattern. It's a combination of those 4 items that are there. So I'm going to dissect and break all of those things down to give you a better idea of what I'm talking about when it comes to what your hair type is. So it's not just 4A, 4B, 4C, 3A, 3B. It's more than that. It's more than that. Especially for the person that's taking care of your hair. They need to know all that other extra information. It helps us to do what's best and most healthy for you in your hair and your hair type. Right? So And even if you say, oh, I'm a 4C, what works for one 4C doesn't necessarily work for the other one. This is why all these factors are part of the formula. So let's talk about it, and let's crack it open and break it down so I can give you better information on what I'm talking about. Okay, so we're going to begin with texture and the density, right? Texture in itself is based on how thick or thin your hair strands are. So, fine hair is a texture, coarse hair is a texture, and if that is based on the thickness of the hair. So, like with fine hair, there are two layers. There is the outer layer, which is the cuticles, and then there is the inner layer, which is the cortex. Those are the only two layers, and it's really thin. Fine hair is very feathery. So, like, even with the slightest breeze, the hair is just, and oftentimes, because of its thinness, you probably is a little translucent. You can kind of see through it into the scalp. It depends on the density, which we're going to get into in a couple of minutes. Now, as you get further to like medium texture hair can go from having two layers, which is the cuticle and the cortex, and cross the border into three layers. Now, the third layer is the most inner layer called the medulla. And that is more seen with thicker, more coarse textured hair. So that's where the 4C comes in. Yeah. Okay. So 4C is not just about the curl pattern. It's also about how thick hair is with 4C hair. That's why when you see a person with like really extreme 4C hair, the curl pattern is more like a zigzag shape, and it's also really thick. So like when it's packed in together, it kind of looks like broccoli. I'm sure you've seen that before, right? So yeah, so the third layer is the most inner layer. It's called the medulla. If you see on the diagram that I have up here, there's a little dot that's in the middle, and that gets thicker and fuller the more coarse the hair is. So that is the texture of the hair. Now, moving into the density of the hair, remember I said texture goes from fine to coarse, like thinner to thickest. Density sometimes is misconstrued for those same things, but density is not about the size of the hair strands. Density is about the number of hair strands that's growing out of your scalp per square inch. So a person can have thick and coarse hair with low density and it seems scalpy. So like when they comb it out, it looks like they got a full head of hair, but the minute they go get braids or something like that, you see more of their scalp. And you're like, what? Are you losing hair? No, they just may have low density. A person with low density hair is growing out a little bit of hair per square inch versus a person with high density hair is growing out much more hair strands per square inch. So if you have a combination of high texture and high density, that's where the broccoli thing comes in. You got a lot of hair growing out per strand per square inch, plus the hair is really thick. Yeah, that's some hair right there. That's some hair right there. So texture is the thickness of the hair strand. Density is the number of strands per square inch. That is the difference between the two. Don't get them mixed up. Okay? Okay, so I brought back the little curl pattern chart on this slide here because now we're talking about curl pattern. Now the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, and then there's A, B, C, and D. It's like, so it's 4 times 4, 16 levels of curl patterns, starting from bone straight all the way to zigzag. Don't let the shrinkage fool you. If you've met a person with true 4C hair and they wet their hair and they let it dry, and now they got to like this little 2-inch afro, and they be like, oh, you bald head. And they be like, excuse me. And then they stretch their hair out and their hair is like 1.5 feet long. And they're like, what? Yes, that's what I mean by the zigzag Z curl pattern, which is the thickest, most coarse curl pattern. Okay, it's not necessarily a round coily curl. It's more in the form of zigzag, and it's not sharp zigzag. It's rounded, but it's like a zipper, if that makes better sense. So the curl pattern starting at one will be very straight, and then a little bit of wave, and then a little bit more wave, and so on and so forth. And then you start getting the S curls, and then you start getting the coils, and then you get the really tight coils, and then you get it's almost like yeah, zipper, like a S, because it's not sharp, but curved. Okay, so curl pattern is the third factor that we are looking at when we are discussing what your particular hair type is. So now we're talking about texture, the thickness or thinness of your hair strand, density, the number of hair strands that grow out per square inch of your scalp, and three, your curl pattern. The final stage we are going to go into right now. So now we're going to get into number 4, hair porosity. Hair porosity. So the hair porosity is your hair's ability to take in, which absorb and retain moisture, not or and. Okay, so it's the hair's ability to take in and retain moisture to make sure that your hair is receiving water, water, like we say here in New York, the water. Okay, so I'm going to illustrate a simple test, not illustrate, but verbally tell you you can do a porosity test to test your porosity. It's called the float test, and it's very simple to do, easy to do. Just requires some of your hair. Now, me personally, don't cut your hair. You can just take some of the hair out of your brush, like I'm doing right now, right? And pull some of my hair. Yeah, so even though I have locks, when I brush my hair, I do get a little bit of hair. So that's a lot of my gray hair, of course. But with the float test, you can take some of your hair out of your brush so you can see better. Yeah, that's some of my hair. Take it out of your brush, right? And in a glass of water, you take that hair and you can drop it down in a glass of water, right? Hold on. Okay, I'm back. So I have a clear glass of water here, right? And I have my hair that I just took out of my comb. And if you put it in the water and it just floats to the top as it's doing right now, if you look closer, my hair is slowly sinking to the bottom of the glass. And it doesn't quite hit the bottom of the glass. It's hovering about a half an inch before it hits the bottom. So I would determine that I have medium porosity hair because it went down very slowly and now it's just hovering about a half an inch from the bottom. It's not quite on the bottom of the glass. All right. So if you have low porosity hair, the hair kind of stays afloat. Not quite on top of the water, but it kind of stays afloat, right? If you have medium porosity hair like I do, then it will stay afloat for a second and then it'll slowly start to sink. And it won't quite touch the bottom of the glass. It will kind of hover about a half inch from the bottom. And because it reached its full capacity of moisture. And if it is high porosity, with the cuticles are wide open, it'll sink really fast. It would have sunk as soon as I put it in the water and would hit the bottom and stay at the bottom of the glass. So, as I said, it's still kind of floating about a half inch from the bottom of the glass. It's not quite touching the bottom. So I have medium porosity hair. So that's one way that you can test the porosity of your hair, right? Also, like even if you're washing your hair, see how long it takes. because I like to time it and see how long it takes for your hair to absorb water, how much you have to rinse it before your hair gets really saturated with water before you do your first shampoo. That's another way to do it. But the float test is a fail-safe proof of learning what your hair porosity is. Okay. So now I want to give you an illustration of understanding how you understand the porosity of your hair. So as I was saying before, the cuticles, as they lay like scales. And then you see in the illustration here, you see them kind of like laying crisscross on top of each other, like scales, right? If they are laying flat and even, like you see in the illustration here, then you have low porosity hair. That means that it's difficult for water to penetrate and get underneath those flaps so that water and moisture can get into the cortex and or medulla of your hair. So if you have low porosity hair, this is why when you see a person with low porosity, they can dunk their entire head underwater and come back out. And the hair, sometimes it fluffs back up, or you just see the water kind of bead up and repel off the hair and just kind of roll off the hair, right? So that is because the person has low porosity hair. And if the same person does that with medium porosity hair, the hair will absorb quite a good amount of the water and it will lay flat. If they have high porosity hair, it would just go smooth, no curls, everything would just be straight and full of water. So because of the cuticles. So now talking about low porosity hair, the hair cuticles on the hair are laying flat and even, as you see in this illustration. And it makes it more difficult for moisture to get in. So when you're moisturizing, especially if you have locks and you have low porosity hair, it's better to moisturize your locks using more liquid-based, thinner products to moisturize your locks, which is why I love refresher spray so much. Because it's a liquid, and moisture, remember, moisture is liquid-based, water-based, not oil-based. Okay, if you're thirsty, you're not going to drink a glass of oil. You're going to drink a glass of water. Your hair is thirsty when it needs to be moisturized, so you need a water-based moisture product on your hair. So when you use things, and what makes it easier for you to moisturize your low porosity hair is steam. So like if you go and take a shower and you need moisture in your hair, maybe that'll be the time you don't wear a shower cap. You just pin your hair up and let the steam get to your hair, and then you can blow it back out, of course. But you're letting moisture get inside of there. And once it's in there, it'll hold and retain for a while. If you have low porosity hair, you will also notice that your hair takes a longer period of time to dry after you've washed your hair. So those are factors to factor in. And when you have lower porosity hair, it's determined, depending on what your hair porosity is, it will determine how much or how often you need to moisturize your hair. So the porosity is a very important factor in knowing your hair type. That way, because there's no one way to moisturize your hair. It's based on your personal hair type. So this is why you need to know these different factors. Low porosity hair, flat, even cuticles, difficulty penetrating with moisture, even when you are processing your hair with chemicals and stuff like that. If you notice a person with low porosity hair and they get a relaxer in their hair, for example, sometimes they have to leave it on for longer or use a super in order for it to just be able to penetrate the hair and straighten it. And low porosity hair is generally the healthiest hair because the flatness of the cuticle helps it to protect itself from harmful agents, right? But sometimes that suit of armor is also a double-edged sword because, again, it's difficult for things that your hair need in order to get in as well. So we have to find ways around that. And steam is a good factor in helping to open the cuticles up enough just to allow moisture to get in. And then they'll close up again and retain and hold on to that moisture. So low porosity hair acts like a cactus once moisture is inside. And it'll hold on to that moisture for a little while. Okay, so let's move into the next slide. Okay, so medium porosity hair, which is what my hair is a little less difficult taking in moisture. So the cuticles are not quite this flat. It's slightly open. It's just like a little bit open like that. And that's just enough for moisture to make its way in. And once it's in there, it's close enough down there to maintain and hold and retain that moisture, which is why medium is probably the easiest level of porosity when it comes to creating a moisture routine. So generally when you hear someone say, oh, this is how you should do a moisture routine, that mostly applies to the average and or medium level of hair porosity. No porosity is a little bit more information that has to be given for that individual, as well as high porosity. But medium, a little bit goes a long way because it's open enough to let the moisture in, but it's close enough to retain and hold on to it. Sometimes with medium porosity hair, yes, water will repel off of it a little bit at first, but then it will say, oh, okay, I know this person, I'll let them in, and the moisture can get in. And then sit down, stay a little while, make yourself at home. So medium porosity hair tends to be the easiest in order to moisturize because, it lets moisture in and it holds on to it. But also be careful when you're using like leave-in conditioners and things like that, because what happens is when you use leave-in conditioners, they do tend to build up and weigh down the hair. And again, leave-in conditioners also contain, oh my God, what's the word? Something good, something tone. If it isn't called silicone. What is wrong with me? A lot of leave-in conditioners do contain silicone, so it creates this barrier on top of your hair. And so now when you have to actually add liquid, moisture, water, it can't get past the barrier because of the silicone that was in the leave-in conditioner that you had sitting on your hair. And again, silicone is difficult to wash off of your hair. So be careful, read your labels when you are considering using creamy leave-in conditioners, okay? High porosity hair. High porosity hair is generally very little people are born with high porosity hair. It's high porosity hair is more of a conditioned hair porosity, and it's usually because the hair is chemically processed. And what happens with high porosity hair is the cuticles are wide open. Think of if you drink some water. I was going to demonstrate. Look, you see how my hair, it started floating again? It's up here again. See? And water's like beating off of it. So it didn't stay at the bottom. High porosity hair will stay at the bottom. It will never float again. It will just go down there. It's because it's holes all over the place. So it's like generally the water's just going through it. It's like, it's just holes everywhere, But think of if you drink water and I'm talking to you. After I just drank water, I didn't swallow the water. I'm just talking to you and the water's just coming out of my mouth. Or, when you go to the dentist and your mouth is still numb and you go and foolishly eat cereal so the milk is just dribbling out of your mouth. High porosity. It's like just nowhere for the water to go or stay. There's nowhere for the moisture to stay. All right? Excuse me. There's nowhere for the water to stay or live or to be retained in order to feed moisture to the hair. So high porosity generally is created when the hair is chemically processed, such as from bleaching or putting a relaxer in your hair, even the texturizer. People think because they put a texturizer in their hair, it softens their hair, makes it easier for them to maintain. But without the moisture routine that you have to keep up with after texturizing your hair, then there's no point in it. I've had so many clients come to me, oh, I put a texturizer in it, to soften it to make it easier for me to maintain, but it got all dry and brittle and it's just breaking. It's because one of the number one requirements for texturized hair is moisture. Even like with Jerry Curl, it was a chemical process to make the hair soft and curly, but you have to use activator all the time in order for it to maintain that softness. Otherwise, the hair gets dry and falls out. How many of y'all seen Hollywood Shuffle? Please tell me you seen Hollywood Shuffle when they was at do the Jerry Curl, and Keenan Ivory Wayans, he was the big gangster dude. He had Jerry curls in his hair, but he was always walking around with his activator and putting his activator in it. So when the detective was asking him about Cookie Head and he didn't want to answer the questions, the detective grabbed his activator and started spilling it all over the floor. And that was the weakness. That was the Achilles heel. And he was like, no, not my activator. And as the minutes was going by during this interview, his hair was, yes, this is overly exaggerated, but his hair was drying out and all his beautiful curls was just gone. And it was crazy. It was funny, but yeah, it's the same thing. So high porosity hair is generally hair that's been, for lack of a better word, fried by chemical processing, and now the cuticles are staying wide open and requires a tremendous amount of moisture in order to maintain decent looking hair. And yeah, that's what I was talking about when I was in the last video that I made about bleaching damage and how high of maintenance. And if the slightest bit of time of no maintenance, you can undo all of the work that you put into maintaining your hair. High porosity hair is not, like I said, it's not something that's naturally there. It's generally because the hair is chemically processed in some kind of way. Every now and then you'll come across a person who just naturally has high porosity hair, but it's not often. This is a time where creamy leave-in conditioners might be the best option to help keep and maintain moisture, because liquid will just evaporate and dry so fast when you have high porosity hair, where you just constantly have to keep adding moisture to your hair in order for it to sustain its luxurious, its luster. So yeah, high porosity hair. And yes, your hair can change from one porosity to the other based on what you do to your hair. So like if you have virgin hair and it's medium porosity, you can easily turn that medium porosity hair into high porosity hair when you process it with chemicals. Be careful. That's all I say. That's all I got for you. Okay? So in conclusion, talking about all of the hair factors, and hair types and curl patterns and such, you can look at a picture of two people where their hair looks exactly the same, and they could possibly have two different hair types. You can also have more than one curl pattern on your hair. Like for myself, my curl pattern up here is a 3A, and around the sides and the back is more of a 3B. I get a little bit more curls along the brim, but the crown of my head is just this soft wave. Again, I will never understand how I managed to get my locks to look like this. I never thought that they was going to turn out looking like this, but I'm happy. I'm happy about it. Yes. So I know from experience, and I have several clients that have the same hair texture and hair type as I do, where I'm like, just wait, watch it transform. And they're saying it and they're like, what is this magic? I'm saying, when you know, I pay attention to the details of how things are. So when someone asks me, my hair is soft, I don't think it'll lock. All hair is lockable, baby. All hair is lockable, and that's all I'm going to leave that at. Just be sure that understanding there are factors that are involved with knowing your hair type other than just, oh, I looked at it and it feels like it's more to it. You have to know those four factors: texture, which is the thickness of the hair strands; density, number of hair strands that grow per square inch; uh, curl pattern, from bone straight to like literally S's, like stacked on this, like fabric that's just stacked like that; and hair porosity. Those are the four factors that will give you more information about your hair type. And there's no title to it. You need to just know those factors about your hair in order to know how to maintain and keep your hair up. All right. And now we're going to go into the honorable mention that also plays a major role in your hair type. All right. So the honorable mention number 5, and this one is really, really important, is tensile strength. What is tensile strength? The tensile strength is how strong your hair is, how much you can stretch it before it snaps and pops. You see that being tested a lot, especially colorists that are about to bleach and lift your hair. They'll do a strand test to check your tensile strength. The tensile strength really is how strong the bonds of the hair keratin is in your hair. If the bonds are weak, then the tensile strength is weak. You stretch, pop. Okay? If they are strong, then it takes a lot, but it can easily be broken down if you constantly are overlapping and chemically processing that area. So that's why it's important, like even when you're doing touch-ups with color, not to recolor or re-bleach areas that you already bleached before, because you're breaking down the tensile strength. The tensile strength does weaken over time. Oftentimes the tensile strength can weaken not just from chemical processing, but from constantly braiding and not giving your hair a break to breathe and relax and just regain its strength. So like if you constantly are stretching something, eventually it'll lose its elasticity, right? And it just is like this. It doesn't snap back. So you got to give it time to snap back in place. And the tensile strength is important, because if you have a weakened tensile strength, there's a way to re-strengthen it, but it take time and treatment and things like that. And a lot of times people don't have that patience. They just want the long hair, and they just keep doing this stuff to keep the long hair. And I understand long hair is important to a lot of people, but to others, the health of their hair is more important than the length of the hair. So tensile strength is definitely a major factor in understanding your hair type. Tensile tension is what leads to traction alopecia. So tensile tension is the breakage of the hair that occurs from constantly doing tight pulling styles in your hair. But tensile tension also pulls the hair straight out from the follicle as well. That's when you see like the little white bumps that's around your hair, your scalp and stuff. That's from tensile tension. You actually see the tension of your hair being pulled out by the root. So tensile tension causes traction alopecia, but it also causes the breakage and the flyaways that occurs with the hair, because your strands of hair just breaking. Sometimes people are breaking your hair on purpose. I used to get into it in the past when I would go get my hair braided, and maybe the braider had got a piece of my hair caught into the braid that they're currently doing, and they'll just take the comb and snap my hair. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Don't break my hair. Like, if you have to unravel a few pieces to pull it loose, then do that. But don't just snap my hair like that. Like, what are you doing? I'm even constantly, like with my clients, I tell them in the downward motion when they're moisturizing their hair every day, just try to stick to doing this. This helps keep their locks separated at the root, because I personally don't like doing the thing where you're ripping the locks apart because they start bonding together and stuff. I don't like doing that. I don't like doing that. So if you're doing this every day when you're doing your moisture routine, you'll find that your locks are not joining together, and your loctician don't have to be ripping your locks apart, because again, it's breaking down the tensile strength of your hair. And that's another factor of why you will see a person with locks suddenly go from having healthy, thick, beautiful locks, and then it's really thin at the root, or you'll see that like little thin piece, and then like, why is it hanging by a string in the middle? The tensile strength is weakened, and unfortunately, the hair snapped enough where it's just not hanging on. So tensile strength is a major part of knowing your hair type as well. Okay. Okay, so now that we've gotten all of that information, I'm going to go a little bit deeper in helping you understand the importance of knowing what a protective style actually is. Protective styles are meant to protect your hair, but in the ends of your hair. Protective styles are generally meant to protect the ends of your hair. I get this all the time. My hair doesn't grow. I don't understand why my hair don't grow. And then, like, one of the answers that I get when I ask, why do you want to lock your hair, is, oh, because locks make your hair grow. Locks don't necessarily make your hair grow. Your hair is constantly growing. However, with locks, the ends of your hair is not breaking off like it does when your hair was loose and natural. That's the difference. I know you see the sun. That's the sun shining from the window on my chest. So I'm sorry. But that's why the hair is not, you think your hair is not growing. It's not that your hair is not growing. What's happening is your hair is breaking off on the ends as fast as it's growing, if not faster. So it gives the illusion that your hair isn't growing. Your hair is growing though. Protective styles are intended to protect those ends and keep them from breaking off while your hair is just resting. You're not doing too much to manipulate your hair, which is one of the primary reasons or causes for hair breakage, especially off the ends. Also, because, people tend to want to hold on to the length of their hair at any cost, at all costs. Like, no, don't cut it. Don't cut it. The hair is damaged. If you don't cut it away, that damaged hair is just going to keep finding this way up and destroying more and more of your healthy hair. So that's the whole purpose of why it's important to trim off dead and damaged ends of your hair in order for you to maintain and hold on and keep your healthy hair. So the problem is not, oh, you keep cutting my hair. It's the lack of patience. We have to be patient, baby. We have to be patient. Patience is a virtue. Okay? So the purpose of wearing a protective style in your hair is to protect the ends of your hair. Right? And with that being said, let's get a little further and deeper into the conversation on the proper amount of time and why it's important to not keep protective styles in for too long. Okay? And how to properly prepare your hair for protective styles as well. So let's go. Okay, so I'm going to give you some tips for when you are wearing protective hairstyles in your hair. And I'm going to back and forth between the blog to make sure I don't miss anything. So number one, don't use heavy dense creams and or oils on your hair when you are wearing a protective style. This creates a lot of buildup, especially at the base if you have braids in your hair and things like that. And when you go to take them out, you have all these little knots of paste and hair and stuff that will build up. And if it's not broken down before you comb it out, you're going to take your hair with it when you take it out. So using heavy creams and oils on your hair while it's in a protective style is not the best idea to, because you don't want to create buildup. Number two, wrap your hair at night when you're asleep, right? Particularly a satin scalp or bonnet or anything like that. This helps to retain and hold moisture while you're asleep at night, and you don't collect dirt and lint and stuff in your hair. Sometimes people say, oh, it's too hot, and I understand that. But if you want to maintain the level of moisture in your hair and you want it to last without getting all frizzy and messed up, wrap your hair up at night, okay? Number 3, stick with the strand length. Stick with the standard length of time. Standard, not strand length, but the standard length of time that's recommended of wearing the protective style. No longer than 6 to 8 weeks, 8 weeks maximum. I'll even give you a bonus to 2 weeks where people, they say, oh, I'll keep it in for 2 months. But you're pushing it, because 2 months technically is 8 weeks. So stick with that. Go in prolonged periods of time, 3, 4, 5, 6 months with a protective style, because it's no longer protective at that point. You're putting a high risk of severe damage to your hair. Your hair can't breathe. It's, you've seen these videos where a person was getting their weave taken out after having it in for like 6 months and all of this stuff. And in the comments, wear your gloves, because they see what's going on that head. And the person says, oh, I only had it in for 10 weeks. You did not have that in for no 10 weeks. So if you're going to protect your hair, then protect your hair, right? And that means making sure that it stays healthy. So going beyond the recommended 6 to 8 weeks, wearing the protective style and not giving your hair the time to breathe, and, just don't. Please. Okay. Number 4, take your time when it comes out. When you go to take it out, take your time. If it's something that you're going to rush through where you're not breaking down the buildup that is at the base of your braids when you're taking down your braids, and then you wind up combing it and taking out half your hair, and you're like, why is my hair shedding so much? Take your time. And number 2, make sure you take it out long enough ahead of time, especially if you plan on getting it rebraided or redone. Give your hair at least a week to rest before reinstalling another protective style in your hair. There are stylists out that, even for me on my services, I offer a takedown service. That way you can just relax. Let me take it down for you. At least you know that I'm looking at the best interest and health of your hair when taking your hair down. And you ain't got to worry about your shoulders hurting because you don't feel like doing it and it's just too much work, but take your time. Number 5, don't rush to get it redone. As I said, give your hair some time to rest. Let it rest for like a week before you redo your hair, at least minimum, okay? Number 6, don't repeat styles. If you see that it has caused damage, but but I like the style, don't put the style back in after you've seen what it did to your hair. Even like with young ladies, like I said, when they put box braids or knotless braids and then they get it dipped, the part of where your hair is still intertwined and you dipping it in that piping hot boiling water, you're damaging your hair because the water's too hot. So chill, bro. No, don't repeat styles that's going to cause further damage to your hair. Okay? And this one is a very important tip. When you are putting protective styles in your hair, again, the protective style is intended to protect the ends of your hair so that your hair can continue to grow and you actually see the results of the growth because you protected the ends of your hair. If you have damaged or dead ends, cut them off before installing that style in your hair so that you know that you are going to still have a good head of healthy hair when you take that protective style down. So I know you want to hold on to it, but don't salvage length over health. It's not worth it. It really isn't. Protect your hair. Protect your crown. So we've reached the end of our video. I hope you have a better understanding into knowing what your hair type is based on the elements that I've given you. Texture, density, curl pattern, hair porosity, and tensile strength will help you to determine what will be best for your hair, because we don't all have the same hair. Even if we have similar hair types, each of us have a different set of DNA to our own hair. So learning to understanding your hair and how it is built will help you to better understand how to take care of it and the health of your hair. And when wearing protective styles, which people generally do, I have natural hair clients who love to wear their wigs, but underneath those wigs, they have a very healthy head of hair because I take care of it. As long as beautiful, it's luxurious, and anytime they want to, they can take that wig off and rock their beautiful natural hair without any problems. Trust and believe. Everybody don't wear it for the sake of saying, oh, I want long hair. No, they have healthy hair underneath it. They're just protecting their healthy, beautiful hair from the rest of the world. Sometimes we got to cover it up. You see? Yeah. Sometimes we got to cover it up. Oftentimes I wear my hair up a lot. I also cover it a lot. So when people see that I have all of this, they be like, oh my God, you got all of that hair and you cover it and you wear it up. I would always wear my hair down when I have hair that, well, that's you. My hair is long, not because I'm trying to show it off. It's long because it's healthy and I just take good care of it. And I wear it the way I want to because it's my hair. Now, let me stop. General Hair 101, I hope that this discussion helps you to really have a better understanding of how to figure out what your hair type is. It's more than just a number and a letter. It's texture, density, porosity, and all of that goodness that just goes into this little mixture pot that says, this is who you are. So embrace your beautiful crown in every way. And what better way? Know thyself and understand your crown. Thank you for joining me again for Locks Talk, and I'll see you next time.